What? Where are we going? I don't know. I'll tell you when we get there. Okay,
So our question today is, how do we get from American Werewolf in London to Miss Piggy? Have you ever played a game called 6 Degrees of Separation? You try and connect two arbitrary things by jumping different steps to different things that connect them in 6 steps. So I thought we'd give it a try this week. Can I connect the 1980s film classic An American Werewolf in London to Miss Piggy, the most famous puppet pig on the planet? So let's start with The Werewolf. An American Werewolf in London was released in 1981 and starred David Norton and the lovely Jenny Agutter. 2 backpackers are attacked whilst walking on the moors by a wild animal. One dies and then haunts the other by telling him he will become a werewolf at the next full moon. Spoiler alert, he does, and bloody mayhem ensues across the English capital. The highlight of the movie is the transformation scene, completed without any of today's computer effects, remember. This is 1981. The genius behind this scene, which still holds up today as convincing, was masterminded by Rick Baker, who spent his whole career creating creature effects and has received 7 Oscars for Best Makeup, a category that was specifically created for him after working on this film. For me, this is still the best werewolf transformation of all time. It's believable, it's genuinely scary and emotive, and from an effects standpoint, it's a work of genius. As an aside, Michael Jackson approached both Rick Baker and John Landis, American Werewolf's director, to produce the music video for Thriller after seeing this film. Together they created what became the first music video to be inducted into the US National Film Registry of the Library of Congress as culturally, historically and aesthetically significant. John Landis is a name you may know. He's directed and acted in many classic films such as Coming to America, Beverly Hills Cop, Three Amigos and Blues Brothers, to name a few. Blues Brothers starred Dan Aykroyd, another brilliant creative mind who can turn his hand to many aspects of filmmaking. With fellow polymath Harold Ramis, he wrote the screenplay for Ghostbusters.
You gonna answer that?
Quit better jobs than this. Ghostbusters, what do you want?
This film, as I'm sure you know, tracks a group of parapsychologists who track ghosts and end up saving New York from numerous spooky creatures. These scary beasts were the creations of Steven Johnson. He specifically worked on Slimer.
It's right here, Ray. It's looking at me.
He's an ugly little spud, isn't he?
And the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Slimer, known in production as the Onion Head Man because the material used to make it smelled awful apparently, was worn and manipulated by using an effect known as chroma keying, where the puppeteer stands in front of a solid colour and then the footage is edited into a scene of choice to remove the human manipulation from the audience's view. Mr. Stay Puft was created slightly differently, with a man in a suit destroying a model city. There were 18 suits in total, all destroyed during the process of filming, with different heads swapped in and out for the facial expressions. The actor apparently had to wear a breathing equipment during the shooting because of the toxic materials within the costume, which is a health and safety nightmare. Steven Johnson, like Rick Baker, has spent his career creating monsters and directing films. He now works at the Stan Winston School, which you can subscribe to and do online classes with, by the way, so check that out when you've got a moment. Stan Winston was an absolute giant of the visual effects world, creating creatures for Terminator, Jurassic Park, Aliens, to name drop a few. The school was created by his family after his death to preserve his legacy and inspire new generations of character creators. Stan Winston has been a huge inspiration to my own work. Steve Johnson has also worked on music videos. He was the director for Peter Gabriel's video for Sledgehammer and the less well-known but equally effective video for Big Time. Both were created using stop-motion animation, with Gabriel lying down under a pane of glass and moving incrementally for each shot. The man had some patience and determination to make a music video with the impact that is still discussed today, having received a total of 9 MTV Music Awards. The film was animated by 2 different groups, the Brothers Quay, twins from the US that are influenced heavily by Eastern European animation, and Nick Park at Aardman Animations. The Quay brothers are an influence of mine. Check out a film called Street of Crocodiles if you want to know more about their work. Now, you might have heard of a little company called Aardman Animations. It is the most well-known British animation company, the brainchild of David Spraxton and Peter Lord, who invented Morph. If you're British and you're over 40, you'll know exactly who this little guy is. Nick Park is their most well-known animator and is the man behind Wallace and Gromit. He created them for his final work at university in Sheffield in the early 80s and brought them with him to Aardman when he became employed there. I will always love that first film, A Grand Day Out, because it isn't quite as slick as the others and you can see the animator's fingerprints. And this makes small-time animators like me feel like animation is an achievable goal. To go back to the werewolves we started with, Aardman Animations produced The Curse of the Were-Rabbit in 2005, a Wallace and Gromit story in which the local rabbits must be controlled in lieu of a vegetable competition. Say that fast if you can.
Vegetables.
Chaos as usual ensues. There are influences from all manner of horror films in there, including American Werewolf in London, but it was considered a box office disappointment in the US. Bit too British, I guess.
Oh?
However, it did win a BAFTA award for Best British Film that year, BAFTA being the British Film and Television Academy. This is a very prestigious group and the stamp of quality in the British media. It is essentially the British equivalent of an Oscar. Other notable winners in visual effects are the 3 Lords of the Rings films, Avatar and Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi won the Best Visual Effects BAFTA in 1983. Of course, the space scenes are amazing, but also we have the creatures to look at, most famous being Yoda, of course.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Yoda was created by a team of designers, and people argue about who was responsible for the designing, but the puppet was manipulated and voiced, however, by a giant of the Jim Henson Company, Mr. Frank Oz. He not only created the voice, but also the strange syntax that he uses. I could talk for hours about the Jim Henson Company and the Muppets, Sesame Street, Dark Crystal, but you'd most likely get bored of me because Jim Henson is my hero, and once I start talking about him, I cannot be stopped. And so this is where we get to our final destination, because Frank Oz is also responsible for, you guessed it, Miss Piggy. Here she is, she loves the stage, she loves that frog, she's got a mean karate chop. So that is how we get from an American Werewolf in London to Miss Piggy via 6 degrees of separation. Never was there a more unlikely pair brought together. Well, maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't want to meet either of them on a dark night in the malls. However, I have lied to you just a little bit. Sorry about that. It has been lots of fun taking you on a journey through some of my favourite creature effects. But I just want to show you this.
Hi. I'm Mr. Collins of the American Embassy here in Grosvenor Square. Both Mr. Goodman's parents and your parents have been notified of your injuries and everything's in order.
That is a scene from American Werewolf in London. David is in the hospital bed, having just been through his ordeal on the moors. He is talking to the doctor, who later investigates the case. Behind him is Mr. Collins, the man from the American Embassy. Mr. Collins only appears in this scene, and he is played by Frank Oz.
had quite a shock.
These dumbass kids, they never appreciate anything you do for them.
If you've enjoyed this weekend's episode, sign up at the link below the film for more arty silliness each week in my newsletter. If you want more Arty Mouse in your life, go to the Facebook group Arty Mouse Art Tutorials and to Instagram at ArtyMouse76. I put up a new episode every 2 weeks, so I'll see you back here then. Subscribe and make my newest episode pop up on your homepage. See you soon.